Welcome, beloved community, to Visionary Conversations with me, Katerina Satori. If you're listening to this as an audio episode or watching us on fabulous video platforms, I'd like to introduce an incredible divine being that I was guided on Facebook, and I was so magnetized by the depth of his expression, quality of the content that he generously shared, that I just couldn't resist but to reach out to him. So this is Billy Sunday Mars, and I'm so happy to share this space with you. And you are in Northern California,
yes, I am now. Yeah, originally from Boston, so quite a difference in the weather and the people.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine.
My goodness. They're nice people in Boston, a little edgy at times. A little edgy.
Yes, and when I was looking at just like a snapshot of your bio, I'm so in awe because I can see the life dedicated to evolution and mastery. And I'm just going to take a moment, beloved community, to just read what Billy shared with me. So, romantic and spiritual fitness expert, is the author of the book Fit for Love. Orphaned as a teen, he survived family difficulties of death, drugs, alcoholism, and disease. Deeply can relate to you in this one.
Yeah.
For 43 years, he relentlessly researched and applied in the practice to be the first to truly integrate neuroscience, spirituality, and sexuality combined with various addiction treatments and psychology to address major taboo issues. So when I got to this part, my hat was off to you. So to address major taboo issues such as toxic masculinity, sex, race, politics, and religion, to heal humanity from mental and emotional disease, which allows us to reverse the aging process. So this is powerful. I can intuit that you have led a rich experiential life.
I've seen something.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
and the topic, right? And when we were tuning into what would be the topic for this exploration, we kind of felt sensual self-mastery.
Yeah. To be aware of how we experience the divine within us, the divine within each other, and our bodies and our minds as the interface between what goes on. And it's sensuality goes deep. It's much more than just we think it's just touch and feel and sight and sound, but it's more how our system interprets what it's going through at the moment. And another being in front of us. If we have pets, all those things, they pick up on us, and it's a deeply, and that's why addiction and everything is such an important thing, because we don't realize what the addiction is trying to tell us.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I remember when I met an inner addict within me for a good solid 2 years.
Yeah.
And I wish I had somebody who would say, do you know what your addiction is trying to tell you? But you're just in the experience, right?
Yeah.
What was your life lesson when you were learning this experience about addiction and sensuality? Maybe just give us a little bit of a context. I'm just curious.
Well, I think I can tell it. What was that movie, Memento, when they kept going back and forth and go back to front?
Yeah.
I had gone through the process of my father dying, and witnessed my mother, who didn't smoke, but started smoking. And then she ended up with cancer. And when I visited her at the hospital constantly, I was very close with my mother. She taught me a lot about how to look at life. She wasn't one of those people that would yell or anything, she would always ask me, what did you think you were going to do with that? What did you think you were going to get with that? So she taught me, and I watched Columbo as a kid, which was a television show about a detective, so I watched that often. So from her, I learned to ask a lot of questions. And when she was in the hospital, I asked the doctor, how did my mother get cancer? And he said, oh, she smoked. And I said, oh, well, why'd she smoke? And the doctor said, well, I don't know. And so watching this disease take not only her life, but take who she was from us, because her ability to be herself was, I mean, with the being in the hospital with tubes and the pain that she was in. And I watched for years how she fought through it, and she would do so many things, even though we were going to school and we were trying to navigate our lives with what was going on. And she'd be home doing things, and we'd say, Mom, you have to stop. We'll do it. Lie down. Just stop. And she wouldn't. She just kept trying to take care of us as kids. And the lesson she kept teaching us about taking care of, how she would take care of us was one thing, but she wasn't able, because of my father not being around to take care of her, take care of herself. So I wondered, when the doctor couldn't give me an answer, what happened to her system. So I had a friend who was an EMT, and I started studying some of his books. And it was a little after that that my brother ended up with kidney failure. And so here I was with a possible third person about to suffer and leave my life. And I wanted to know how these things came about. What happened to our body? Where did disease come from? What caused us to have disease? And my mother smoked, and my brother drank through 2 kidney transplants. And I couldn't figure out why she smoked, and that contributed to her losing her life and us losing her. And my brother not being able to stop drinking, even though it was apparent, pretty clear, that the kidneys would fail if he drank. And he was fortunate, even after he did lose his first, to get a second one. So I ended up compensating, and I've mentioned it, through bulimia. I was modeling and doing some things and dancing, and they said, some of the girls that I was performing with said, hey, you can't eat like that and stay in shape to perform. And I was going, well, don't know what else to do, because I can't seem to kick the eating habit. And they said, well, you can do this. And that began. And well, my mom passed away. My brother didn't pass away. He was able to stay alive for a while. But I ended up performing in China and Japan. And when I was in China, I was learning training of Kung Fu with Shaolin monks. And the elder monk noticed what I was doing. And here's these guys half my size, twice my strength, throwing me around in the woods like a rag doll. So no matter how much boxing and football and tough guy stuff I did, these guys just, it was like being on, what was that show, Gotcha, one of those shows that take cameras and witness all this stuff to show you later on how, foolish you look. But the monk stopped me and noticed, and this was an older monk, I believe he was 92 at the time, and he stopped and he put his hand on my chest and his hand on my stomach, and he says, you have a problem. And I Boston Billy pumped up and said, I have no problems, I'm out here performing, I'm having a great life. And he says, no, you have a problem. But he said it in Chinese, 你有问题啊. And I said, I spoke as best as I could in Chinese. And he explained that I had emotional problems and I was going to kill myself if I didn't stop. And that was when I realized that he got me. And it still kind of chokes me up to this day because, being a guy who learned to fight and everything like that and be tough guy, I felt myself well up and I felt the tears come out that, wow, this person, after all these years, I had to come all this way or go all that way to China to have this person see. And he was the first person that actually saw me, and I realized, okay, whatever these guys have, whatever they do, I want to know. And so they taught me to meditate. They taught me to not only meditate, but they explained. Now, as a guy, I heard the term yoga and thought, but what they explained is that all the martial arts, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Qigong, all of them came from yoga. It was taught by the Bodhidharma to the original, way back when, to the Shaolin monks. So I said, oh, so I'm going to spend the rest of my life looking at things I thought were not guy stuff and go, wow, I was really wrong about it. And so when they explained how to meditate and how to sit with myself and to sit with what was going on in my life, it made a huge difference. I noticed changes not only day to day, but I would say moment to moment, how I was able to see things differently, and most important, see so many things that I was wrong about. And I kept thinking, I'm gonna sell my ticket, I'm gonna lose my ticket, whatever I have to do, but I'm not going back to Boston. I'm staying here till I figure this out. Well, I started to add things into notes and reading and compare things because I was brought up Catholic. I was brought up Catholic and the whole Christian thing, and I started to compare what they said and how they said it and what these things meant together. And it made a very deep impact on how I saw myself and how I saw my brother, because before I looked at my brother as, what's wrong with him? Why can't he stop? Why is he so stupid? Why is this? Why is that? And it was some of the other younger teachers that said, okay, Billy, let's go to the nightclub. And I'm going, why do you guys want to go to what did my influence get you guys? What happened? And they said, no, we want you to go to the nightclub with us. And I went to the nightclub, and they pointed out, in China people smoke and drink a lot. And so they said, what do you notice? And I said, well, back then I still had a little bit of edge. I said, oh, there's a bunch of drunk people here. And they said, we see you like you see them. And I said, what do you mean you see me like I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't have a problem? And they said, Sifu said, which means teacher, said, yes, you have a problem. Your addiction is different. You don't think that you can, that drinking's the only way you can be drunk, or that smoking's the only way. Your drunkenness is to your thoughts about how life is. And until you fix that, you'll be worse than them because you think you're better than them because of it. And it was what do we call that? We call it the holy slap.
I call it humility soup.
Oh yeah, humility soup. Oh yeah, and with all the fictions and all the dipping stuff and everything, they just hit me with it.
I love it.
So they got me good with it, and it gave me the understanding when I got back to America. After that, I wasn't doing what I was doing, and things didn't bother me to the point where they could. And Another thing that happened that was really important was I saw people completely different. And I began to say, because I was teaching, of course, exercise and dance and things back then, which we called exercise. And my friend said, well, you're different. What happened? And I said, well, I spent time with some monks. And they said, well, what do they do? And I said, I don't know. The only thing I can express is they exercise. I mean, we exercise and they innercise. They 180 everything. And with that understanding, my gym training changed. I should have paid rent at Borders and Barnes and Nobles and whatever bookstore, because I went there and just got all these books, and they said, Bill, you don't have to go to the gym anymore. You can just work out with the books you bring home. Because I was bringing home all these books. I got a book called Zen in the Brain, and I started looking at figuring out what they taught me and how it works. And that was what the turning point was, to be able to really look at and say, oh, okay, my mother's system, these hormones, and of course later on we find out about telomeres and we find out about epigenetics and we find out all these things, and everything is interconnected. The capacity to heal and what we look at as healthy, or what we look at as sobriety, no longer look the same, because I had heard of 12 steps, and I said, okay, that'll bring us to a place of social sobriety only, but spiritual sobriety is much different, because we see our world and we see people do things, and everybody's able to drive and do things, but that's social sobriety. But they're still seeing from the place I saw from before the monks wholly slapped me. So that's how I ended up seeing how I see. But the other parts with sensuality and sexuality. I was a stripper, and with those insights, from that perspective, I saw the women 180 degrees. And I had never been a person who was. I was never a womanizer. I was never one of those people. I was quiet. I wasn't one of those guys that did. But I think that it added more to really to seeing my mother suffer. And when I was performing, I wondered what happened with women in the club. So I would do my performance, but then I would go back in the audience and ask what their lives were like. Well, they're married. Why are they here? Or if they were getting married, why are they here? Because I knew why guys did it. Guys didn't have much self-control to be able to say, hey, this is probably not a good thing. But I was very interested in what happened with the women and their thoughts, their feelings, because you could see that there was something else there.
And I'm glad you are taking us into this next exploration. Because when I read your Facebook post, one and the second one, and I was like, I get to know this being because of the depth of the insights, specifically when it comes to the feminine, to the masculine. And there's a certain level of nobility that I sense that you bring to the whole conversation. And and it comes from the richness of experience. It's not something that you read in the book. It's something that you live through and really sat with and allowed it to alchemize your consciousness, to be able to speak to it with precision and depth and high vibration. So going from addiction and inability to feel to going to retuning your entire system and stepping into sensual self-mastery. What a journey. What a journey. So, Billy, I'm curious, how do you define sensuality right now?
It goes deep. I mean, as a kid, my favorite artist was Prince. So if you can imagine a guy who listen to Prince and Sade
Yeah, I
all the
totally can
time.
imagine.
Something, something is gonna kind of gonna boil in there to bring all these other things out of the soup. And what I think, to go back, like I said, to the whole memento thing, to go back and forth. When I was a kid, my older sister was 6 years older than me, and her girlfriends used to be over the house all the time. Well, I think I noticed they were quite different from my friends, and I couldn't help but go, "Wow, I'm not going out with my friends. I'm staying right here. I'm not going anywhere. Wow, these are beautiful beings. They're the way they move different than we do." And being 6 years older, because I read a lot as a kid, that was one of my mother's things that she had me do was if I was out of line, and I was out of line a lot. I was, breaking things, and so I had to read. So I read and studied, and I realized that the kids my age weren't having conversations that meant much. But I would listen to my sister's girlfriends and go, "Oh, I think they read the same things that I'm reading." So I would have conversations and interactions with them. And I can remember because I was kind of tall, they would tell me again about their problems with their boyfriends, and they'd say, "Guys are so this, and they do this, and they do this," and I'm going, "You want me to go after them? I'll take care of them. I don't want them hurting you." And they're like, "Oh no, it's okay, but I'll go get them. I'll go get them. And I got to hear those aspects of things, and realize there's an aspect of myself that it's it was important to me to understand how I could change their bad feeling or their negative feelings to better feelings. How could I do things? So I would say, "Hey, I can make tea. Let me make you some tea." Or I can get this. And I would just do things that I'd noticed their demeanor changed. And I noticed that the more subtle I was,
Mhm.
the better. It wasn't about being a macho punch tough guy, because they had problems with guys that were like that. And so you realize, okay, that's not how to be. That's not going to work. So I learned. My sister one day brought me to a dance class, and I said, "I don't want to go dance. I play football. I play baseball. I don't want to do this." And I couldn't dance. I think she figured that out. But I went and I watched, and I said, "Oh, wow, okay, that's kind of similar. Okay, all right, okay, I think I can do that." Well, uh, I remember watching a movie called All That Jazz with the Bob Fosse movie, and I said, "Oh, okay, I
Mhm.
can learn to do that. I like that." And that type of sensuality, the movements that they did, and then watching some of the other things, I would watch dancers move and said, "Oh, okay, I like that. I like the way that happens." And so, sensuality and how you have to feel your body to be able to move, as opposed to, and I had done the whole thing with trying to learn breakdance, and I wasn't any good at it. It just didn't fit. So I wanted to learn that. And so, learning not only that you had to move, but then I witnessed how, as a male dancer, you had to move with a woman, and how they were able to kind of make the woman
Mhm.
the center of the movement. The guy would do his thing, and he would let her twirl, and he would support, and he would do different things, and that became something that looked beautiful to me. And seeing and witnessing those things taught me about when you move and when you experience, that's a subtlety in You only have to move so far, and you don't use this much pressure or this much energy. And experiencing that was a big aspect, a part of when later on when I would write Fit for Love, seeing how the bodies would move together, and then saying, well, what about what the monks taught? What about the inside? How do the insides and outsides move together and meld together? And later on, I dated a woman, the woman on the cover of my book, and she had me over in Maui, and I was fortunate to listen to tantra instructors out there and talk to them and understand what they were saying without actually having to get into the whole tantra scene, so to speak. And a lot of it clicked because you find out that yoga was the foundation for tantra, especially going through the Tibetan practices, Dzogchen and Mahamudra, which is what the Dalai Lama studies, and the martial arts. And then on top of it, what the monks taught me, which was very important, was that the hands aren't just for fighting, but they're also for healing. So to do massage, to be able to take away, I crack up because I remember later on watching Karate Kid again for seeing him do this, and I'm going, hey, I know what he's doing. But the energy that we use to heal difficulties in the body, we see that everything comes together. So sensuality, going back to what you and I spoke of earlier, let's say the eyes are portals, the ears are portals, the nose, the mouth to taste are portals. But it's the being we have to become that's capable of making better use of those. It's the being we have to become that's capable of making better use of touch. And not only to make better use of it, but to do so with integrity and honor, because we have another being that may be in front of us. For instance, the monks don't fight people. That's something that they do over here in America. But over there, they're taught to witness what may be happening for the other person, and I guess we'd call it in America de-escalate. That helps in relationships, because if we're close to somebody and something happens and you can sense their, as we mentioned, their body moving in certain ways, or their eyes go this way, or their vocal tone changes, you can notice and go, oh, you're upset. And the monks, again, don't look at blame. They say, the monks will go, how have I offended you? Even if it's not their fault. So they're not into the place where they say they have to be the aggressor or powerful over somebody. They say take nobody's peace. They say empower somebody to move from the position that they feel that they're hurt from to a place where they feel well enough to express. So you create the safe space. So sensuality, before we even get into a place of sexuality, is about teaching about teaching us as humans to be aware of the space we're providing for another being to express without fear. Or even if they're in a place that they have been of fear, to move to a place where they feel safe enough to, from our sensing what's happening from them, whether non-violent communication. I like the expression unviolent, because non-violent means you're just ahimsa. But when you're going to a place even beyond that, you're inviting what may be difficult for the other person to come forth so you can play a part in what's happening for them. You're providing a safe strength for them to say, oh, this person, even if I yell at them, they're not taking it as, the 4 agreements, they're not taking it personally. So sensuality, if you create that space, then especially for a woman to be able to calm down with everything that's happened or may have happened with that men have done, because God forbid it's the amount of women, the percentage of women that have been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, God forbid, to the point where they've been raped, and they're all these fears, all this trauma has been there for them. For us as males to provide a safe space to sense what has gone on, to provide a space where they can express. Because before we even get to the place where what we call sexuality can even come into place, if we haven't provided a space for them to open, then whatever we think we're going to do for them sexually isn't happening. And I use that term for them sexually, because their system is still in fight flight, even at a subtle unconscious mode, and nothing can happen then. So sensuality, before we get into physical sensuality, we have to get into, and I just wrote about this the other day, 55% of communication is body language, 38% is vocal tone and prosody. Only 7% is the words we use. So someone else's unconscious is picking up everything faster than our conscious mind can pick it up about, what is that saying? Who you are and how you are is speaking so loud I can't hear a word you're saying. So our unconscious sensual self, the being that we have to create to pick that up for another person, has to meet with that unconscious of the other person before their conscious mind can step in and try to say, oh, I'm fine. Because we've already picked up, no, there's no congruence in your speaking, there's no congruence in your words. Let's figure out what's happening for you. So sensuality, if we can't read that part, then we're certainly not going to read much in the dark. We're certainly not going to read much with what somebody's going through with how their breathing is, which we have to pay more attention to intimately. And that's why I wrote that thing. I don't know if you that a woman can say more with her eyes, her breathing, than a poet can say in a lifetime. Because it's all there and it's all being said, but unless we're aware of it, unless we're able to pick it up, especially as men, if we don't develop those parts of ourselves, and there's another. What I want to do is take a moment to see what's coming up for you, and then I can go into the guy part about why guys don't. So how are you feeling now about what's been
appreciation said? For this wisdom and this topic to be given a voice. It's truly the number one challenge that I see in interpersonal dynamics, right? It's like so easy to shift into opinion of what we think is happening instead of feeling and being in that space of humble discovery. What is occurring for you? And I love that you said, you pointed in your expression that it can be developed. It's truly can be developed. I often talk, Billy, about being highly sensitive being, and navigating the world without shutting down your soul gifts and your high level of attunement, right? And so that was my journey of really, how do I cultivate my deep soul gifts without shutting down my sensitivity? And I love that we are opening up whole other different kind of sensitivity. It's a sensitivity to another person's inner being, right? And we can become more and more developed in that mastery, because it is a process of mastery, and it all starts with the art of paying attention and being curious. And this is the reason why I love these conversations. They elevate everything for me and gives me so much richness to contemplate. And so how do you help specifically men to develop those sensitivity organs, the inner sensitivity? How do you go about it?
I use, as you've seen, I
What
use
is that?
menguage and menglish.
Mm-hmm.
I use guy talk for them. You know the saying, know your audience? So I explain it to them from the scientific point of view and say, when I explain about learning new things, how we actually learn, how our system actually learns. And so awareness comes from creating a neuronal representation of that capacity. And so when we explain that in our nervous system, the heart has 5,000 times the electromagnetic field of the brain, so it's always picking up what's going on. And yet the heart is also 65% neuronal tissue, so it's more brain than it is muscle. So it's very aware, which is why our heart does what it does before our brain says, oh, this is happening. Our heart goes, and we feel that, first of all. So to explain that, if we want to be better, I'd say to guys, look, being from New England, I watch the Patriots play football all the time, and I say, if you're the quarterback and you're not sensitive to the fact that this 300-pound guy is coming to get you, you're going to end up in the dirt in a lot of pain because you didn't want to pay attention. You didn't want to be sensitive to what this guy is doing. And they go, sensitive? And I go, yeah, you got to be sensitive. You got to notice how his foot moves before he does certain movements. You got to notice how his shoulders move, and you got to pick it up. And the same thing with boxing and martial arts. Everything is noticing what they call tells, what's happening. And so in China they have Sun Tzu, which is the art of war. And I say, you've heard the saying, all's fair in love and war. And they go, oh, yeah. And I go, well, your girlfriend or wife, she's telling you the same things, except you're not in a fight. But if she's upset, you're not going to be happy, so it's a good thing to pay attention. And they go, oh, yeah, I get that. Yeah, it makes sense. She did this the other day, and it's like, and they go, oh, well, I think I said this, and what I'll ask them is, well, what was going on in her day before that? What do you mean what was going on in her day before that? I go, you do talk, don't you? You do ask how she's doing. And because that's going to tell you what's going on that's causing her to feel or act the way she's acting. And the more we do that, I was saying that the mind is not like a muscle, it's like multiple muscles. And what happens with guys is over the course of time, men have been taught to be providers and protectors. And unfortunately, our society says to be a good provider, you have to go out and make a killing. To be a good protector, you have to go out and kill or at least hurt or maim, wound the enemy. What that does to the male system is it limits the function of a part of the brain called the insular cortex, which is the feeling aspect of our system. And it decreases the capacity not only to feel within ourselves, because if we're going to kill, we can't feel bad for somebody. Well, if we don't feel bad for that person out there, then we come home and we still can't feel for our wife, our girlfriend, our kids. So over generations, men have been less able to feel. And the parts of the brain, which is exactly where the third eye is in yoga, the monks, turns out that the monks' meditation develops that. Well, for me, that was what they healed with me when they taught me meditation and they taught me all these things. So I had a few things that were able to collectively aid me in being able to understand better. So what I look at in men is I say, look, I explain to them, I say, look, I'm 6'1", I weigh 230, whatever, 225, and I say, I got my butt kicked by a guy half my size, and they were the kindest people I ever met. One guy would fight with me, and then he would go catch butterflies. So, and not catch them, but he would hold his hand out, and the butterfly would land in his hand. So everything that they talk about being tough, I help them put that to the side. And saying the real strength is not what you do against somebody, but for them. If you're able to show your girlfriend or wife that you're capable of protecting her, but you will not under any situation hurt her. I explain to guys, no, you don't yell at your girlfriend or wife, you don't swear, unless you're picking her up to carry her to the bedroom, or you're playfully doing things with her. You don't do that, because that will sit in her system, and she will be afraid of you, and she will never be able to be intimate with you. So teaching them all these things about sensuality, about how her system senses, how our system senses, how our system literally builds new neurons and new connections to be better at whatever we're doing. This teaches men, before they even talk about intimacy, or before, intimacy is constant. Intimacy is constant. Courtship is constant. But sexuality, before they get into the place where they say they want to be sexual or work with erotic energy, this is what they have to work with first. Otherwise, it's going to feel like the affront or the negative things that other men may have done to her beforehand.
Wow. I'm so grateful that you're sharing this message, because it is our cultural initiation in a way, that women open up and become like these receptacles for the goddess energy, and in the gap, like, we forgot how we feel. We really want to feel with you. And I cultivate incredible friendships with this amazing, embodied, evolved masculine, and I love having these conversations because, just to share the frequency, of this is what is possible. It's so beautiful. Oh, that noise went away. Thank you.
I figured out that being a musician, I kind of the guitar makes noises. I've fallen asleep playing guitar and woken up in the middle of the night and heard, it's just going. I'm like, what the heck?
Well,
I forgot to.
I call them the sounds of life.
Unplug the sounds of life.
So then, Billy, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You know how, like, I often talk about the evolution of the soul, and there are these archetypal chapters of the soul, and you can't really rush your healing. The healing will take as much time and space as is required. In your experience, helping a man to learn how to feel again, what that journey is like, milestones, a process, because I really don't like sugarcoating things. I don't like, you just decide you're gonna feel again. No, really, it's a training of how to open up our inner world again. And I love when we give it objective perspective. What's the journey like? The reward, you open up a whole other reality of experience for yourself, right? And what's the journey is like?
Yeah. Our system, and I talk about the system a lot, especially with attachment traumas. the way men are brought up with the bro culture, trying to fit in, trying to prove that they have to prove that they can be good at sports and they can be good at attracting a girlfriend, or worse, God forbid, they have to show that they can actually have some type of sex with a girlfriend so they can come back and tell their friends. And there's not only the social validation, but in our brains, what most people don't realize about the male brain, in both brains, but more so the male brain, the amygdala, which is considered fight and flight, is not only fight, flight, it's fight, flight, and delight. They're right next to each other. And so dopamine is released to go after. And then sated, we get the serotonin, we get the opioids, we get the other neurochemicals. So what people have become is, and that's why I say about social sobriety as opposed to spiritual sobriety, what the Buddha would call bliss beyond cravings and aversions. Well, let's look at that for a second. Cravings and aversions. Years ago, they said, well, people function two ways, reward and punishment. They crave the reward and they're averse to the punishment, which is still the same part of the brain. So 2,500 years ago, what the Buddha was trying to teach, and what we look at as human beings as a matter of how to train the nervous system to support itself, to self-regulate, which is what part of what we call now, to self-manage and to notice, to self-witness. I call it the fitness of our witness. Are we witnessing what's happening? Because when I was going through my bulimia, and when I was going through difficulties, and you know, in a way, it benefited later on from my being able to help people understand that when we're going through something, when we want something, that part of the brain lights up and says, eat the piece of cake. It looks especially good now since you've been eating lettuce and you've been having diet food, and because nobody feels bad and has broccoli.
Yes.
When they're not, no one says, oh, I'm having a bad day, I'm going to eat some broccoli. They want comfort food. So the part of the brain that's seeking comfort is what people are after. Well, let's look at how men then see women. The same part of the brain lights up, which means the part of the brain that thinks and manages is going to shut down, which is why men say and do, let's say, everything from stupid to horrendous things, because they can't take that part of themselves and breathe it down and say, okay, I can acknowledge and appreciate that this woman is pretty or attractive, but I can just acknowledge it and not have to do anything about it. I can just say, huh, okay, wow, she's pretty or she's beautiful, okay. And just be with that. Just be with that. Just like you could say, you know, just like the brain can acknowledge and go, wow, I'm starving. And you have to say, well, I'm trying to eat better. There's the kale and there's the cake. To be able to say, wow, I appreciate that piece of cake. Wow, that's fantastic, but I'm over here. And this is just with food, which keeps us alive. Now we have to look at women. And this is where it goes deeper. Because the food may keep us alive, but without a woman, us as men, we're not alive at all. It's only because a woman went through the process of allowing herself to be pregnant and then carrying us for 9 months and then going through the pain of birth that we're here. So if a woman can go through all that pain to allow us to be alive as guys, hey, I can work through the cake. Or I can show the honor and respect of this being who can also bring life into the world, possibly has brought life into the world, or understand that if as a male I say or do the wrong thing, if she does bring life into the world, it's going to have that trauma into the now child to compensate for what I did or what I said or how I made, especially if, God forbid, a woman is she may not be showing, but if she's pregnant and some guy says something, that stress goes through her body into the umbilical cord, into the baby, and the more stress that she feels, the more that baby is going to come out looking to defend against those stressors. So I explain it that deep to men. I explain that it's not just what you're going to say now. It's not just what you're going to do now. These are the repercussions. You can say all this stuff as a guy, but this is how our world is. And then I can help them trace it back to, well, it's very well possible that this is how a father who didn't show up allowed his son to be, or a father who was abusive caused his son to be, that caused a woman to feel that because he disrespected her, or God forbid, assaulted her. And now her kid, who was born with all her stress hormones high wired, now acts like this. And so it's not just saying to men, let's do this practice. Let's be in a practice of learning how to self-manage. It's saying, let's be in a practice of how to self-manage because of this. And because if you have kids, you're going to want them to be a certain way, or because you want to be the best you can be. And then I go into another side of it to say, you want to, in being the best person you can be, no longer have that poison or those wounds which allow you to act like that in you, because it says that you as a guy hasn't healed either. You haven't healed your nervous system, you haven't healed from your own trauma, and every time someone does something wrong, that whole forgive for they know not what they do is, do you know why you do? Because if you're doing something like that, there's something within you that you haven't healed that allows that's being mirrored or being said or being done. So allowing people to move into the place where they're actually 360, I call it spirituality instead of spirituality. Spirituality, seeing it 360, how their training is working with them, how it's working with people they're around in their neighborhood, or in the community, or in their relationship.
It sounds like
it's
a
not
lifelong
just saying,
curriculum.
Just do this training because you'll be cool. Oh yeah, for me, I do it. This thing in back of me. This is my meditation space, morning and night, and I play guitar and do things because the monks balance out their masculine, feminine energy with instruments. But people will ask me out. They'll say, "Oh, you're a pretty big guy. How often do you work out?" I say, "About 1/10 as much as I work in." What do you mean work in? Let me tell you about this part. And I explain, and you give it to them in a way that they can relate without making them feel bad, because that's one thing that's important. I don't judge, don't condemn, because I've been an idiot. I see how goofy and dumb I can be, and they may not notice it, but I realize, I go, oh, gee, Bill, that was talented. That one took talent. What was that about? But without judgment, without condemnation, without shame, without blame, because I see how much work it takes to be in that fire, and to help people be in that fire and walk them through it, to say, hey, I know this, because the same burn you feel when you're working a muscle, your heart feels when your brain feels and your mind feels when you want to give up. But I'll say just a little longer. Each time you stay in a little bit longer, it causes something in your brain to create new things that says, hey, this is what you need to survive. And you're going to be better, and you're going to notice it. And they do. They notice it. They're happy. They say, oh,
that's the joy
the other day, and I felt like saying this, but I did this
the
instead.
Transformation, right?
And that's
unfolding.
That's good.
I love that. I can sense such passion in your soul for this level of service, right? And we carry on that torch. I love how you,
I'm thankful.
when you work with men, you speak their language. you explain a lot of things in a very logical sequence, right? Like if you do this, this what's gonna happen, this what's gonna happen, which is incredible. I love it. I love it. And when it comes to women, Billy, what do you have female clients? And if you do, what do you focus on in supporting women to remember, to see, to realize,
Yeah.
to feel?
One of the things that's really important, thank you for asking that question. One of the things that's really important is to help women understand that most of what happens is not their fault. That, on occasion they may say something, and I'll go, you might want to not be persnickety and say that one. You might want to hold that one back because, guys are going to perceive that. But for the most part, to help women understand how men have been wounded and how that causes or may cause a woman to feel bad about herself, and to help her be fine with her way of being, and I explain about being bulimic and a lot of body shaming with women growing up, and they'll explain about how they felt about themselves and how they were made to feel, and they weren't pretty enough, and they weren't this enough, and they weren't that enough. And I explain to them, the same thing I do with guys. I explain, if you go to the store and you need eggs to make a cake, and you only need one egg, and you go to that one store and it has the one egg, do you care about what other stores have? No. Do you care if they have anything else? No. And so to help them understand, there's going to be the one person that's going to get you, and all the stuff that you've worried and wondered about, that one person is going to look and say, there she is, and she's beautiful and she's perfect. And that guy's going to kneel down before you and say, your wish is my command. And this is what helping them understand, that part of my work is to create the guys that will do that will witness, that will be able to see a woman that deeply. And I know that it's been difficult. I know, people will say, that the women appreciate what you say. And I say to them, I have to go through my own practice and go through my work as well. So the guys are going to have to go through their work and their practice to become what a woman needs. And as I say, a woman envisions a world, and to be okay with a woman saying that this is how she wants her life to be. This is how she wants, because us guys, we're fine. We're
That's
okay
right.
with a TV in the corner, we're okay. But the rest of the house, she's got to love it. If she's not happy, it's done. So the woman envisions, it's not just the house. So the woman envisions the world, the man engineers it. That's all he's got to do. He's got to say, hon, because we like Home Depot. I love Home Depot. He's got to walk her through Home Depot and say, hon, what are the colors you like? And they have a home section. They have carpets there. They have curtains you can buy, or take it to the other place, whatever. It's his job to say, and these are the tiles you want, this is the colors you want, this is it. And he's got to witness the excitement. If she's excited, because her energy is going to show, and that's going to show, and okay, good. I often joke that women and men see and buy things different. A guy will look at something and say, does it work? And a woman will say, yeah, it works, but I don't like it. And that's it. So he's done. If it doesn't look right for her, she's done with it. And similarly with guys, with a guy will go, what does it look like? What does she look like? Well, a woman will go, well, does he work? She doesn't want the guy to sit, doesn't care what he looks like if he sits on the couch. So, but then there's the yin and yang within, that they can come together and find that place. So when he says to her, how do you want it? then he can just say, okay, I'll build it. And likewise, when a guy looks at a woman, if he pays attention enough, suddenly he goes, wow, she's beautiful. She's in sweatpants. Her hair isn't done, but her essence, I love this woman because of how she is. And he starts to realize from the inside out and go, wow, that's what actually works. And this is why the envisioning and the creation, when we begin to really see, we see that it all folds into one, and we're a whole rather than parts. They begin to see the whole woman and see, wow, if I see from how she sees, from who she is, then later on, I don't even have to bring her to Home Depot. I can go to Home Depot myself and go, that's what she'd like. And go home and go, this? And she goes, yeah.
Yes.
Why? Because we pay attention. We start to see, again with sensuality, we start to see with her eyes. We start to feel with her heart. And then we can buy gifts because we know we can walk down the street and see, we can see a hat in a place and go, okay, I see why she likes that. It's got that weaving thing that she likes, and oh, okay, I see why she likes those colors. And I know those are the colors, and I know those are the flowers she likes. So the sense not only senses from within myself, but we sense her into the thing that we're looking at. So to tell women to go back around to say that men have been taught not to feel, but once they heal, they can feel again, and then they can feel for what she's feeling. There's actual parts of the brain that can feel multiple levels into what other people are feeling within what the girlfriend or wife is feeling. So you can say a guy and his wife will walk into a place and he can look at her and go, huh, she's thinking that woman's thinking this. And that is when our sense and sensuality, when it becomes that beautiful outside of the bedroom, imagine what it becomes inside.
Magnificent. Magnificent. It brought me to this thought that I always say my top love language is to feel like my partner, my man, notices the most tiniest details. Yes, and it's the same thing with the gifts. I'm so good at finding gifts for the ones that I love because I pay attention to every little thing. Yeah, I want when you see a masculine, when you see the man who can do that, who learns how to do that, learns how to pay, because it's learned skill. It's a skill of mastery. It is incredible. I deeply honor for the message and the light that you share online. Your message is so important, Billy. And any exciting projects that you are weaving into being that you'd like to share?
Yeah, the process of I spoke about with someone years ago. I read a thing by a guy named James Prescott, and he talked about how love and intimacy prevents violence, and he talked about how attachment trauma and how all these things go together. So with what's been happening, the amount of violence,
What do you
this
mean by
is all,
that,
if you notice, it's
incel?
usually men, often incels. Incels are called involuntary celibates. And so their system says, I'm not going to be able to reproduce a child, so I'm going to just hurt other people. And often these people have been bullied, so their system is highly wounded. So what I'm looking at is how to, well, I know it's getting it to the place to now where I have practices to teach that help to learn to self-manage, to be how our system can feel and work with things directly from moment to moment. And permission to speak freely? Okay. The same thing that happens with men intimately when they can't hold themselves and prevent themselves from releasing is the same thing that happens when people become angry. They go into sympathetic. And if they go into sympathetic, not only are they going to not be good in the world, but they're not going to be able to be good for their wife or girlfriend. They're not going to be able to take the time. And if you've seen, I mentioned giving, learning to give, the massage, and to prepare for and to understand how the feminine system better experiences, because her system has to be in deep parasympathetic, which means the bath, which means, as I mentioned in that post about the candles, which means we have 30 times the testosterone as a woman typically. So if she's wasting her energy cooking and doing the dishes, and then the guy says, well, why doesn't she want to? Well, because she's not designed to do all that stuff and then do that. So it's an all-around process that I'm working on, from what we call root to fruit, to teach men how to understand how to self-manage, and then not only self-manage to be better providers for society, but how that helps them to be better intimate partners. So the world, Mother Gaia, is one aspect. That's the world that they're in, and the people in the world, Mother Gaia, the feminine that helps our world live and brings life and beauty to the world. He has to understand that the relationship that he has with his girlfriend or wife is now that beautiful part, which he loves the goddess through her. So we have the let's say the subtle. Oh, my thing is going here. The subtle, and then we have the more depth of intimate goddess that we're working with our girlfriend and wife, and then we have the world and the more material aspects that's helping there. So just to help men learn to self-manage to be able to better do that. Give me 1 second. I'm plugging in over here. There we go. My computer set up. Like I said, I'm not that good with stuff, and it says, "Bill, your battery's running low." And I realized, I am not plugged in.
How important
so I am.
that contribution is.
My pardon. So what were you saying?
I thank you for being. Thank you for devoting your time and your essence and your skills to this cause, because that's how we heal the world, and it just makes my heart smile so deeply to know that there's men who are leading these movements, who are doing this incredible, powerful work and service and contribution, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, it's I, as a male, who am thankful for you and the feminine for, like I said, bringing the beauty and the wisdom, because wisdom is Sophie and Chachma and Aramaic. The wisdom is the feminine, And so the beauty is the feminine, and we as men, we're fortunate to be able to witness. And so I'm thankful to all the people that have helped me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be on this wonderful podcast with you, and for you and what you do, and for those
Thank
that
you so
were
much.
willing
And
to tune
beloved
in,
listeners and viewers,
and partake
you
in this.
can find all the
Thankful. Thank
information
you.
about how to reach Billy. I'll put it in the show notes, and after the video you can see, click on it, check out his work, and check out his Facebook. That is just a luscious garden of insights and beautiful reflections and exquisite writing. So on this note, we are going to say thank you for your attention, beloved community, and may we all grow into deeper mastery of our sensual self, and we may we be the bringers of the beauty, of the wisdom, and incredible harmony. Thank you.
Thank you.